Good day to you. Okay, this is some stuff from Gurdjieff, early talks. He says, the earliest beginning of the Institute can be considered to have been in 1895, when three tourists met by chance in Egypt by the pyramids. Finding that all the three were Russians, they became close friends and decided to continue their tour of Egypt together. Their conversations while wandering up and down the Nile and over the excavations of ancient Thebes enabled each of them to realize that the questions they touched upon had, as proved later, interested all the three for some time past. All the three had travelled a great deal before that meeting. The first, Prince Lubavitski, had already been in India, Tibet and Beluchistan. Since he was wealthy and an ardent seeker, he had managed to visit places where no Europeans had penetrated before him. The second was from his youth attracted to archaeology. He was an energetic man. Immediately on finishing his university course, he was appointed assistant curator of a well-known museum and was often sent on archaeological expeditions. Before that meeting, he had visited excavations at Delhi, in the valleys of Hindu Kush, Armenia, Babylon, and others. The third and youngest of them, Gurdjieff, was chiefly interested in magic. Having chanced to spend his youth among such peoples as the Yazidis, the Izors, the Apiklis, he constantly came face to face with phenomena and traditions which no inquiring mind could ever pass by without innumerable questions. Gurdjieff was a very rare man because he was trained by Christians, Orthodox, and buried by them. But he was interested in phenomena. He was a very practical man, just like the Taoists say they are. He wanted to be able to do things, not talk, but do. He knew the difference between radiation and emanation. If we look at his work and the incredible amount of highly technical cosmological knowledge that he had, you can see the value of doing, of practically exploring your powers, your abilities, and that's the result. Huge volume of information. And those people who talk, they just have nothing by comparison. Beelzebub's tales, eh? I guess Gurdjieff's teaching is for those people who are interested in phenomena, in exploring phenomena within themselves. So it is not a normal religious path, at least not one that we could compare to anything else, I think. And given that nearly everybody who is interested in Gurdjieff's teaching ends up talking about not being negative and trying to pay attention, you can see that they are completely in the wrong place. They are in the wrong place. Most of them are simply failed Christians, or one of the many versions of left-wing recalcitrant ideology. Refuse to go to church and think you are above it. Well, Gurdjieff had been to church, and when he died, again he went to church. So you're quite wrong on that count. Are there any students of Gurdjieff on this planet? I don't know of any, because I have never heard a single one actually discuss cosmology from their own experience, from having results. People talk of the work. What work are they doing? Gurdjieff says, it is quite true that thought reading is possible. It can be achieved by many different means and methods, which may be genuine, half-tricks, or tricks. Many people have probably seen the so-called magnetic transference of thought. For instance, one of the well-known methods is to hold the other person's hand, look into his eyes, and suggest. And indeed, it is possible to suggest thoughts. There is another unconscious transference from either side. He reads my thoughts, only he does so not by thought, but by muscular contraction. We shall call it a half trick. And there is yet another. When I suggest to another, this is what we are now beginning to learn, the ABC. I have transmitted to him quietly and unobtrusively. It can be done almost without pressure. This is one of 1,000 methods. Now, I was walking up the street the other day, and I said to myself, alpha, beta, gamma. Except I didn't speak it, I just said it in my head. And for me, whether I say it outside or I say it inside is the same. I hear it the same inside. What does it mean? Well, what it means is that the idea, if that's the right word for it, the idea that is inside my intelligence exists without words and certainly without the voice. As I've said, when I occasionally attempt to speak to higher beings or angels or statues that I see, when I receive something, I feel it as a pulse, and that pulse then settles inside my intelligence, which can slowly decode it. In the beginning, I could tell only that the pulse was a yes or a no, but sometimes there was a sort of maybe feeling about it. And my intelligence tried to reach what it was, but over time, it's become easier for me to hear whole words. And I think that's how it is. In terms of Gurdjieff talks about 1,000 different methods. For instance, if I speak to somebody by vocalizing things and I say elephant, for instance, then I'm harnessing the apparatus of this physical body, my voice. What is it really there for? For eating, for breathing, for screaming maybe, for charging an enemy. But I'm harnessing it according to my training in language. And then I make the air reverberate and it's received by somebody else. And, eventually, according to all sorts of things, they receive inside their intelligence the idea. If it is a normal person who's speaking, they will receive the idea either as a symbol representing something in the society, or possibly as an empty shell, hollow words. But if I speak with my soul, then they will receive a direct signal of my intent, because it's transmitted according to the pressure waves coming out of my soul. The words are imbued with their own individual creation, the creative life inside of them. To be on the path is to be able to create. Creation is to create something new, something that does not exist. Yeah, if I walk down the street and there are people there, they are living, but they are also declining. They were created by a process outside of them, and they carry on through momentum. But they do not create from their heart, because they are not spiritualized. Once something is created, even a person, he carries on going. And so you see this activity of people, but they do not create from themselves. They create only according to some sort of rhythm, unfolding this sort of unconscious pattern. And although they are active, they are not creating. But when somebody who's spiritualized does something, there is a spark that comes from their center, and it breaks the unconscious machine and brings in something new, something vivid emerges from their wish. Humanity is greatly deceived because they imagine that they are alive, but they are only alive enough to slenderly witness their unconscious existence. And in good moments they feel love, where something happens inside of them. And according to my own experience, you need a teacher, and that teacher has to pour the words of light into your ears hour after hour after hour after hour, because to come away from the unconscious womb of the earth is very difficult. It's not a question about knowing something or reading a fucking book. It's not like that. You cannot imagine how painful it is to come out of the herd because you don't know where you're going. For the first time in your life, you're even more lost than you ever thought possible. It's painful. As my teacher says, easy path is false path. In terms of recognizing your true identity, likewise, it is not some sort of trick that you can do when you walk along the Nevsky trying to remember yourself. It's not like that. It's not like that. A real identity is a new kind of function inside of you that is connected to your sense of yourself. You have a sense of yourself, but this is a different one. It is subtle, it's inside, and you can't really switch it on. You have to soak up inside of it until you become it. It takes thousands of hours of sensitive contact with yourself, and I wish, against the cutting face of spiritual practice. Now I hear people who say they don't want to be negative, they want to be positive, they want to be the high vibration or something like that, right? Well, that's bullshit. Where is the law of three in that? That's just one-sided. It doesn't work like that. To create, you have to go into the darkness and turn it to light. That is creation. You take what is dark and you make it light. That is magic. That is power. That is truth. That is effort. And that is the spiritual war. Now, what do you think the Christians are doing? They're praying to God whilst flailing their body. The saints, they would kneel on rocks 20 hours a day. You can't imagine how painful that is on your knees and the shins. And they opposed the pain of the body in order to generate an astral body from the confrontation, the sacrifice. That's what Christianity is about. It's for brave warriors. Christ is nailed on the cross. His body hangs there, but what is behind it is the abstract body. That's what the cross is. It's the abstract body. The positive at the top, the negative at the bottom, the sun and the moon. In other words, it is pure. It has two pure poles and there's a line between them. That is the abstract body, right? The mortal flesh is part of the earth, and it's too low a level to be able to represent purity. Life on the earth in the physical body is always suffering because the entire context that we live here is too low. If I emanate chi in front of me to somebody else or just around me, who can see it? Maybe a few special people could see it, but most people cannot see it. Why? It is because what you can see on the earth, it seems to me, is according to the level of the earth. The earth herself has a certain level, and therefore what is visible is according to her level. If you develop yourself spiritually, you're going beyond this level. And so those things cannot be easily visible unless you meet somebody who also has that sensitivity. Inside Beelzebub's tales, and really not buried very deep, are various technical experiments and descriptions and so on. I've never heard anybody talk about them, apart from one guy who talked about them a little bit and then gave up. Apart from that, nobody ever. So, Gurdjieff buried the bone very deep. I don't think he really needed to. A little more from Gurdjieff. He says, "Well, I will also explain this to you at once. I hate you because all my life, that is half a century, I have laboured and suffered for you day and night to discover why you are unhappy, and whether it was possible to make a man who was quite indifferent to me happy. I have worked so hard that I can freely say harder than any man on earth. The result of it all is that all who have ever known me will either hate me or call me a speculator or an enthusiastic, psychopathic visionary or whatnot. Why is man unhappy? Probably the best description I can give is that he does not know how, or he refuses to feel his own pain and to receive it and to heal it. And along that journey, you learn who you are, because to heal your pain, you have to accept who you are, what you feel, what you think. You have to take all these things seriously. There is a time to observe things and to separate yourself, but what will you do with that power? What will you do with your bag of bones? What will you do with all your shadows, skeletons, all those things that you really wish you didn't have? They are your charges and your responsibility, and there is a long journey to heal, integrate, care for, father, lead, and marshal all of these parts of you. So what will you do? Will you try to be positive and ignore yourself one more time? Life is real. Be real.